I'm
notes.
embarrassed for you guys right now.
That's a
That's
dumb
funny.
question, Peter. Come on now. It was good.
All
We were on our best behavior, I'd say, for Vegas.
all right, y'all. Well, we're about 3 minutes after, so we're going to get started. Super excited for Logan presenting today. Just a couple nuggets I wanted to throw out. One thing that I've been kind of doing recently a little bit that I kind of want to out to everyone is after making candidate introductions. This doesn't happen all the time. It's only certain circumstances, but it's happening more and more and more. Where instead of like presenting the CV, asking the client, hey, are you interested? The stuff that we normally do. I've been getting into making introductions immediately, where I'm sending out invites to both, where I'm basically doing one emails to both candidate and client, and introducing them immediately rather than waiting for them to say, they're interested in talking to this candidate. If the circumstance is right, not in all times, but I've been doing that, and I've been kind of doing it a little bit more with more volume week by week, and it seems to work really well. I get a lot quicker response. I get a lot. The introductions seem to be just better, and so I'll send the CV, send the bio to the client, and then in many cases I'll flip right around, let the candidate know, hey, I'm going to make a soft introduction between you, and then I'll send just a real simple email introducing the two parties, asking them to keep me copied in the loop. And yeah, I did it yesterday. It worked really well, and I've done it multiple times now. And so, yeah, just something I wanted to throw out that I've been kind of, you guys may be doing that as well, but it's something that I've kind of added that seems to be working really, really well. And if anyone has any questions on how I've been doing that, just let me know, and happy to expand on that. But it's something that seems to work, pretty well for me, and we'll see. The other thing
Jeremiah,
that
hey
is,
Jeremiah, real quick,
yeah,
what you're talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, but so I send the CV to my client. After I get off the phone with that send out, I immediately send an email to both the client and candidate, and I say, "Hey, Dr. Smith, I'm introducing you to Betty. Uh, I sent your CV today, and here's information on their job." Is that how you're doing it?
yes.
Are you getting any pushbacks from clients?
Not yet. Not yet, because
Awesome.
it's like it depends. It's like, if I know the client, if I know the client well, if I know the client is going to be interested in this candidate, I know the candidates, and if I just know, if I have a good feeling that there's going to
Yeah.
be a good mutual interest, I won't wait for them to tell me that. I'll do it. Now, if it's like I'm not really sure, if I'm on side of aggression, and I'm not really sure whether or not the client's going to be interested, it's a marginal candidate, then I won't. But if I'm feeling confident, I'll do it. And it's really seemed to help, and I haven't had any pushback from any clients yet.
I was gonna say,
Sweet.
have you done that with any open clients or just your exclusives?
Yeah, it was the last one. I'm trying to remember who it was. It was yesterday. It was with an yeah. I'm racking my brain to remember who it was, but it was with an open client. I know that for sure. It was not my
Yeah.
own client. Um, yeah, and of course I won't do that for anyone else's own client, but whether it's my own client, definitely, and some open clients that I have good relationships with, I would say I've done it, 8 to 10 times, and every time it's been so because it seemed to work.
Good.
I'm gonna do a lot more. Um, and then the segue into Logan's discussion, I just wanted to add into that, how incredibly important that, Logan's discussion is going to be. I think we all fall into two categories. Either we are meeting our goals, or we are trying to meet our goals. And I think, having a really good stable of own clients is so incredibly important, because I know for myself, and I know many on this call, it's an awesome way to supplement your income. It's an awesome way to, um, by placing your colleagues' candidates, and by so many, through, um, bonuses, and, so many different ways that we can maximize client relationships that Logan's going to talk about. I know that if you're meeting your goals, it's a way to far exceed your goals, and put and to pad your pockets even further, and increase your bottom line even further. And if you have a hard time meeting your goals, getting a good stable of clients and working on that is a great way to help you meet your goals. It's a great supplemental thing to what you're doing. And anyone that feels like, or everyone should be doing it. Everyone should be working really hard to keep building their client base. And yeah, and I think it should be a part of everyone's marketing plan every day. And it's not, not just exclusively through Definitive Healthcare or other sources trying to get brand new clients. And it's not just exclusively talking to existing clients. I think having a nice blend of talking to existing clients in RMS and then organic clients that we are not in communication with at all or not in our system. I think doing that about an hour a day, doing it every day, being consistent and doing a blend of the two should be a part of everyone's marketing schedule on a day in, day out basis. And if you're doing it consistently, it works. It's a lot of time, a lot of effort. It takes a lot of no's, but the yeses are glorious. And I'll lead that into what Logan's going to talk about today. And I'll turn it over to you, Logan. Take it away.
Awesome. Appreciate you, Jeremiah. I was stoked for this one because I think just like my success as a recruiter and time at Curari and client work was a pivotal role in that. Like as far as not only from earnings potential. Oh, somebody on mute.
Okay.
We might mute real quick.
Clicking and then going, oh, we're going to hold a nerve with that click. No, it's really fucking not.
You might be able to mute him, Jeremiah, if you're the host. I don't want him saying anything he shouldn't be.
Go Tom.
There we go. What a start. I love it. Good. But yeah, what I was saying is like client work and development of those relationships and really kind of trying to exploit every angle possible of, being the face or the exclusive owner of that account is what really, I think, elevated my recruiting game very early on. It's just because it teaches you so much whenever you're in communication with those clients on a day-to-day basis and allows you to identify where the opportunity is at. And when I mean opportunity, whether it's CFAs or bonus addendums to increase your bottom line, client work is what's going to tee all that up for you. And if you're not speaking with clients, engaging with them, or building those relationships, it's hard to establish or identify those opportunities from open clients. I mean, it's not impossible by any means. I see it all the time, but it's a lot easier when those are the relationships and the clients and the relationships that you fostered kind of through through the jump. So yeah, appreciate the introduction, Jeremiah. I was excited for this one. But yeah, so obviously a major goal for all recruiters here at Curari, if not the biggest goal, is to build a solid stable of clients throughout your career. It comes with, the angles and avenues that you can go, and it kind of having a stable of clients leads your direction. It gives you a sense of, what am I going to be working on at all times? And if you've got 4 to 5 clients, damn well that with any of those jobs, any of those mailers, that you've got a sense of already a huge arsenal of bait and jobs that you're going to be able to take to market, which will then procure your candidates. Having a stable of clients, I think, whenever you look at working the candidate side of things versus the client side of things and kind of intertwining the both, having a stable of clients really builds a whole new level of security and stability in this job, because to Jeremiah's point, it essentially sets you up to where you've got potential opportunity for passive income. Essentially, it's not necessarily passive because obviously you're involved in the the communication between your recruiter, their physician, and then the client. You're handling that situation and everything that happens from start to finish there. But whenever you've got a client that you work really well with and you've got a good relationship with, and you know that their process inside and out, it essentially kind of becomes passive, because all of that info is just knowledge that straight off the bat that you can share with another recruiter that's introduced a doc to you that doesn't require a lot of work. And then outside of that, it's paper pushing, following up on emails, making sure things get moved to the next step in the process. But having that client can essentially be passive income that is not there just working the candidate side. So today, obviously we're going to be talking about the highest level of client ownership, featured status. Before I dive into, kind of what you can do with a client and the relationship that you foster to get them to that point, I first want to make sure that everybody knows what a featured client is. And then the actual benefits that come along with it, down to actual examples for numbers. So in our exclusivity stable right now, to get to a featured client, we would have to collect $150K worth of revenue while they are under your exclusive ownership. And so obviously getting exclusivity can come in all different ways, whether it's picking up a new client off of a definitive healthcare search, fostering a relationship with maybe a client that we'd worked with in the past that, had an old fee, we bump the fee, build a new relationship, and, make the case to why, this client should be in your stable, or just maybe due to the work that you've done for a specific candidate under that client's umbrella, to where I've seen it happen to where that client will request you as the point of contact. And obviously all things aligned, the account looks good, management's discretion, we would take a look at that, and obviously want to honor that if that's what a client is requesting, because clients obviously are a moneymaker. We want to, every single CFA tees us up for an opportunity to look at this client and not only service their needs for recruitment, but also Curari's needs, and understanding how we can kind of squeeze every dollar possible out of this opportunity. Some of them are great, and we can, get them to featured status and generate a ton of revenue based on the opportunities they have, or the bonuses that we can sign, or their process moves really well, or maybe there's a super marketable candidate that candidates want to go, or super marketable client to where candidates are just naturally attracted to that client and want to go work for them. So those tend to have a much higher volume of candidates that come through, whether it's through hoppers or ad responses or mailer responses, whatever the case is. But that client gives us the opportunity to really look at all those facets and see what our path is going to be to get there for 150K. So I think that's something that I definitely wanted to add in here too, is just kind of identifying with each client what process works best for them, and sticking to that. Obviously, we want to influence, coach, trying to dive into what's going to work best, relay the successes that we have in other markets or similar markets, and make sure that they're aware of that, so we can kind of steer them in the direction that we want. But I do know that that's not always the case, and sometimes we kind of have to not fall in line to what their process is, but abide by that, but then really exploit that and make sure that we're doing everything on our end to follow their process, make sure we're getting responses in a quick time, and identifying how that process looks to where we can maximize it from the candidate side of things. That way, whenever introductions are there, we can move as quickly as possible. But yeah, so featured clients, to get there, we've got to collect 150K worth of revenue while they're under your exclusivity. At that time, once you get to a featured status, revenue and credit split is 50% of any place candidate that is assigned to another consultant. So if another recruiter introduces a physician to you for a job, that doctor places, just for you having that client in a featured status, you're going to get 50% credit and revenue for that. So I've got a few examples here. I'm actually going to throw them in the chat for you guys, just so you can, if you want to save this or add it somewhere. But I wanted to give a few examples of what it looks like whenever you've got a client who does 4, 5, 6 placements a year, and what that can do to your bottom line as far as your W-2s and the revenue collection for the entire year. So the examples I use, so let's say you've got a client, we're averaging about 4 placements a year with them. They've got a $30,000 fee, and let's say we're doing 4 placements a year. And let's say that those aren't your physicians; those are other recruiters, doctors. They're just submitting them to your jobs, and you help them get them across the finish line. That's an extra $60K of revenue on your bottom line. You get that client up to 5 placements a year, you're going to be at $75K worth of revenue per year. 6 placements, you can get up to where you're essentially halfway to making $100,000 a year here at Curari just by fostering a relationship for one client. I look at some of the featured clients that we have here, and I feel like most of them, I think at this point, hover around that 5 to 6 placements a year, some far exceeding that. So you can imagine what that is doing for whichever recruiter that owns that client's W-2, their bottom line. Some can pretty much, based on the volume of jobs that they have and locations, can dedicate,
Get what you get for $50.
their entire recruitment plan directly to those maybe 1 or 2, 3 clients. So as you can see, I mean, if you're looking at the commission scale on how how your bottom line tiers up in percentages on what you earn based on your recruiting skills alone, if you were to get a client to a featured status, just imagine what that would do. I mean, think about it. If you're, in your early career at Curari, you're doing 10 to 12 placements a year, you're making good money, but the client development side maybe hasn't blossomed like you wanted it to. Imagine what finding a client and getting them in featured status would do overall. I mean, you're talking about an extra 50, 60, 70, 80K on your W-2s just by having that dedicated client that you've been able to kind of drag through the process, coach them, and get them up to where we are placing physicians with them at a high level like that. And so to Jeremiah's point, obviously general marketing work is the toughest work. It's the furthest away from the money. It's the most tedious. It's probably, realistically, I'll just say it, making definitive healthcare calls, pitching the same thing over and over again, is probably one of the most boring things about this job. But looking at these numbers and looking at the big body of work and thinking about, what my recruitment is going to look like, 2, 3, 4 years down the road, that work is worth it. Not only from a revenue standpoint, but obviously clients, you can use them in multiple different facets, whether it's having jobs available at all times, mailers, referrals. That's a thing that I'm going to touch base on here towards the end of the meeting, is like referrals, I think, are something that is widely underused, not necessarily underused, but just people don't take enough chances on trying to get referrals from owned clients and exclusive clients, because the networks that are in the community, a lot of those networks merge. They're familiar with one another. This physician's, office down the road, or this practice, they intertwine a lot more than we think they do. I'm going to pause right there. Looks like John's got a question. Does the additional revenue come from the placing recruiter getting a smaller fee? John, can you clarify that question a little bit for me?
Yeah. So if the placement goes up to 50% of that fee,
Right.
how does that break down? Because for as a recruiter, I would get 50%, right, for a placed candidate. So where does that extra money come from? The company, or from lesser percentages for everybody else? Because if I look at that, this disincentive to place a place a candidate with a featured candidate if I'm getting a lesser fee, whereas I don't think it's meant to be a disincentive. So I'm just
Right.
wondering
I don't
how
think it's meant to be a disincentive. I think it's more so it's what Curari wants to reward, right? Our biggest thing, and what we found to make recruiters successful for the long run and provide a sense of stability and security to this role, is client development. Having a stable of clients is by far none probably going to be the biggest pillar to a recruiter's career if you look at the body of work over 5 or 6 years. To your point, I would say, is how many candidates do we go through a week, right? How many interviews are we doing per week, right? Do we have the picture perfect job for every single doc that you interview? No. Right. But you're going to run into a physician who says, I need to be in, outside of Chicago, and you're going to, naturally send them to the closest positions that we have to Chicago. And I know that we have a few featured clients in that northwestern region of Indiana. So I don't necessarily think that you should look at it in a way from, let me focus on this featured client's position, but more so the body of work that, we are providing the opportunity for recruiters. And you want to jump
Logan,
in?
I'll jump in here real quick. I mean,
Okay.
so John, it's a 50-50 split. Our exclusive status is 10%, owns 25%, And featured, once you've collected $150,000 in revenue, gets to that 50-50 split. And, we feel strongly that we want to reward people that are fostering good relationships with clients. And if you've gotten to a point where you've generated $150,000 in business under your management with a client, that's a big value add for Curari. And clearly it's something where you're managing the process and it's improving our results. And so, yeah, there's going to be that revenue split, and that's how it works. But, it's relatively tricky. Well, I won't say tricky, but relatively tough to get to that point. Even with our average fee continuing to climb right now, I think we're just under $28,000. That's still a lot of success to be had under your management. And that's really what we're looking for people to do, whether it's exclusive, owned, featured, is to have that value added for Curari, for the team. And it's going to make it easier for you to expect success when you're sending a good candidate there, because that's already been worked on. The kind of it's been paved, the way has been paved to make sure that it's going to be easier for you. At that point, a featured client owner is someone that has a very good relationship with the employer and should be able to push things along, expedite things for you. So there's a lot of value there in terms of how this splits up.
Thanks.
So yeah, I'll jump right back into it. So obviously, yeah, you can look at the figures here that I've given just from an example to kind of put it in perspective. What one or two featured clients can do to your bottom line when it comes to revenue and the dollar amount that you can make, and really just maximize your earnings to your fullest potential, and somewhat passively. Like I said, it's there's a lot of work that goes into fostering these relationships, but once you've got that established and you've got the process down pat, and that client in and out, to where a recruiter introduces a doctor to your client, right then and there that you're going to be able to call them and say, hey, Tina, this is what you can expect from so-and-so. They're going to reach out with an email. Next step is this. Next step is this. This is what their contracts look like. That little bit of work right there to maintain the relationship and exploit it is not much. And it's one of those things that if you can get, 1 to 2 clients to that status, it's life-changing money from looking at only focusing on the candidate side versus, having built and fostering those relationships on the back end as well. One thing I wanted to share was our most common types of featured clients. Well, kind of any themes that we see. I tried to do a deep dive, and I don't know if I got to all of them. We don't have that many out there right now. But I would say most of our featured clients are going to be independent hospitals. They're going to be multi-specialty groups that aren't, under the umbrella of one of the super large organizations. They're going to be smaller health systems with maybe 1 or 2 community hospitals nearby. We do have a few larger private groups that have nationwide facilities that are featured as well. But I would say that, and feel free to jump in and add if there's anything that you think I'm missing, Jerry, Ian, or whatever. But I would say most of our featured clients are going to be independent hospitals and multi-specialty groups across the board. So those are the types of groups that I would target specifically whenever you are putting together a general marketing plan for a specific doc. You can get that information, obviously, identifying them through client batches, pulling a definitive healthcare search, and hop on Google, hop on ChatGPT. I know several recruiters that have, had some success general marketing just by throwing in ChatGPT. Send me 10 private practices that are looking to hire a physician in Florida, or whatever the case is. That research that you can do outside of RMS, outside of definitive healthcare, always, I think, not only just builds your knowledge and industry knowledge, but can lead you into looking for unique opportunities that maybe aren't found in RMS. I've seen it happen day in and day out. So once we get so now that we know what a featured client is, what the revenue looks like, what the splits look like, there's a few things that I think that are pivotal in once you've got that client on board, if they're in your exclusive stable, what's your game plan? What's your vision to take them from day one, $0 to collecting 150K? And I'll jump right into them. I think first and foremost is you need to map out that path, right? What does that look like for that specific client? The first thing I'm going to take a look at is I'm going to look at their CFA, see what kind of fee that I was able to sign with them, or maybe I was able to bump with them, and do the simple math, right? I need X amount of placements based on this split, based on, this scenario. If it's another recruiter's doctor, whether I place them personally, what is my path going to be from day one to 150 collected? And I'm going to look at what they've got from an opportunity standpoint, because obviously you're jumping into these relationships. You're going to understand what their highest priority needs are. You're going to understand what jobs or specialties that they're going to move the quickest on. And so what I would do is I would look at the both of those and game plan. If you know that they need multiple primary care docs, but they're in dire need for an OBGYN, I'm trying to find as many family medicine docs or primary care docs that I can for them, but I'm also going to pitch them a bonus addendum for their OBGYN job, right? That way I can maximize my earnings, put a couple extra dollars on that, make sure that they know the benefits of it and the benefits of why, a higher CFA is going to bring more eyes to their positions versus some of their competitors, and why a bonus addendum works so well, because it really puts essentially a bounty on that specific specialty and creates a sense of urgency that is just, can't be matched anywhere else in any recruiting firm. And so looking at the body of work, looking at what they need and how you can conform to that to get to that 150 collected. So making sure that they're aware of, obviously bonus opportunities, I think is, I look at my two featured clients that I have, and they're two very different relationships. Bakersfield Family Medical was one that I brought on board, brand new client, and they were a very personal client. Brenda, I can call her on the phone, talk to her about her husband. I can talk to her about her kids, her grandkids, where they're traveling this weekend. Her husband just had a terrible stroke, and so it's something that she's been dealing with. Like, I'm very close with her to where anything that I need, I can call her. So she trusts me on another level that is, it's professional, but it has a very personal attachment to it. And I knew that because she was talkative. She wanted to get on the phone. She replied to my emails very quickly. She asked for my guidance on a few things, and I was able to really provide the answers and the direction that she needed at a very early time in our relationship with it, which just built the foundation for us to build off of that. Her group is not a very large group, and so with them, I knew right away that I was going to have to get some bonus addendums to be able to take them to featured in a quick, short period of time. It was one of the first things that I had pitched to her. It was, hey, we need a doc in San Luis Obispo, but I really needed doctors in Bakersfield and Tehachapi. And so I identified my opportunity, pitched the bonus addendums for those specific locations. I said, if SLO's not a pressing or priority need, let's hold off on that. We don't need to put an addendum on those. Let's do it on Bakersfield and Tehachapi. And from there, those two programs worked for them. So it built a level of trust and a level of confidence that she comes back to the well often. I mean, now I don't even have to pitch it nowadays. If she has a dire need for a job, I would call the addendums kind of the bonus addendum crush program. I don't know where it was. I think I maybe confused some things when I first started training here, but that's where I went with it, and that's what I stuck with. And now, if she has a dire need, she hit me up 2 weeks ago and said, hey, I need somebody in SLO. Like yesterday, we had a physician retired, crushed this job. So now I don't even have to do anything. I send her an addendum that outlines the parameters of it, and boom, we've got a 25K addendum on a job, which we should be able to fill in a beautiful location like that. But it's been a little tougher than expected. I guess nobody wants to move to coastal California and buy a $2.5 million home. But that's not the point. It's looking at the relationship and fostering it specifically to that. My other featured client, Powers Health, totally opposite. I can call and talk to him on the phone. I can talk to two of the directors. The other two directors are not fond of my follow-ups. They're pretty snippy and rude, and they'd rather me just stay out of everything, which is totally fine by me. But I play that game with them. I still follow up, I still push the process, but I do it in a little bit lighter hearted, maybe not so detailed way as I would get into the weeds with Bakersfield Family Medical. But Powers, you look at them and their situation, it's a 3-hospital system with multiple clinics in Northwest Indiana. Each hospital has 2 admin executives, so I'm communicating via email with them first and foremost before anything. None of them are too personal, just because they're not the decision makers, they're the paper pushers, right? And so I recognize that and understand that I don't really need to get the weeds with these folks. It's moving them through the process in this stage of the process for clearances, following up on send outs. Are they going to connect? And then boom, once that gets moved on to a director, like I said, 2 of the directors, I'm on a text base with them. I can hit them up anytime, no problem at all. The other 2 want nothing to do with me, which is okay. We've still placed with them in their divisions. It's not an issue, but it's much more of a hands off, let me send them the physicians and let them run with it, versus the flip side of things with Bakersfield, I'm on calls with them. I can do just about anything and everything, whereas Powers, they want me to kind of be hands off with it. But I recognize that early and often, and so what my thought was, with a client like that's not going to allow me to be in the weeds in the process with them, and they don't want me to, I guess, not necessarily screen as hard as Bakersfield wants to, but they're not going to give me more. So my mind is, I'm going to send anything and everything to that client. I'm going to get super aggressive with them, and they can let me know which physicians are going to move forward through the process, because they're not allowing me to sell in that front name clearance or that send out. We can only sell really once they're engaged and, and speaking with the physicians. And so what the point I'm trying to make is, whenever you get a client, and you're starting to work with them, pick up on how they want things to move, but also tailor your process to exploit that. What I mean, and that's why the Powers thing, I think, is a great example, because I can't send everybody Bakersfield. You send me a clearance for Bakersfield, I'm taking a look at the doc, making sure that there's probable cause and there's a reason why we're sending this physician, right? Because they are going to jump straight to setting up a call within the next day or 2. Right. And so I want to make sure that, I've done a little due diligence before I get those over. Flip side of that, Powers, send anything and everything. We're going to find out within a week's time frame if they're interested in setting up a call with that doc, or they're going to hit me with a very basic and very generic, we will not be pursuing this candidate email. And no matter how many times I've asked them, hey, what was it specific about this candidate? Why didn't you want to move forward? This, that, and the third. Like, what can we do to try to create an angle or create an opportunity to push a little? They don't do that. And so, again, I've fostered the process and the position to send it all, and we're going to follow up. We're going to obviously provoke a response whenever we need one, which they're typically good at getting back at a certain time frame. But 2 totally different clients that, I think their paths to featured status were totally different. Powers Health, I've pitched them several addendums. They don't want any part of it. They don't need it. They get tons of candidates. It's not something that I've talked with William about. I've talked to Teresa about it, and Raylene, Betsy. They're just not interested at all. And so that's something that I discontinue to pitch in, unless it's something I do find an angle there. But the past to featured were just 2 totally opposite in both of those clients. And I think that it allowed me to kind of see both ends of the spectrum on how to make the most out of a client on either side of the fence. And so moving down here, yes, we've covered that. Consider the average volume, identify the weak points. Building relationships, I think, is the biggest thing whenever it comes to, being the go-to person for a client. Whenever I get a new client on board, obviously it's you want to know who the decision maker is, but obviously you're not always going to be talking with the decision maker on that first introduction or through the day-to-day process. A lot of times there's office admin or, their own PRs or whatever the case is. And whenever you're looking at the process and you get into, kind of going through the flow with that client, try to identify who you should become close with, right? Like maybe it is that front person that handles all the CVs that goes to the owner of the clinic, or maybe it is the director, which is kind of maybe gatekept by an office manager or an admin executive, whatever the case is. And so get creative in the ways that you can connect with those individuals and make sure that they know your name. Like, make sure that they know exactly whenever we get a QRA candidate, it's coming directly from Tom Langley or Terrence Amos. Like, from there, once that you've got your recognition and you've got your foot in the door with the decision maker, it's going to allow you to influence dramatically. Like, I would say in this scenario, it's similar to my relationship with Brenda at Bakersfield Family Medical. I feel like I've gotten some deals across the finish line with them that we're probably close to falling off 3 to 4 times before we got a signed agreement. But with my relationship with her and getting them to bend a little bit and taking the hesitancies or concerns that a physician has to them with confidence in a relationship that's been established, it's does it work always? No, but it's going to allow you to at least have that opportunity to close or push. So I would say whenever you do get a client, try to identify what that process looks like, who is going to be involved every step of the way, and make sure that you get a touch point with each of them, one way or another, right? It could be as simple as, you onboard a client, they've got a front office person that handles all the clearances and the send outs, but Dr. So-and-so is the owner of the practice. He's going to be making all the decisions, or, she's going to be making all the decisions, whatever the case is. Even if she doesn't want to handle the recruitment efforts, find a way to run into her, or, hey, I need to hop on a call with her real quick. Hey, is there any chance she's available today? Can I talk to her for a split second about this specific thing? Try to get past that gatekeeper. And I'm not saying that you have to go from, skipping the front office person or whatever the PR is to working directly with them, but find an angle to where you can get on that phone with that decision maker. So again, they know who you are. And then from then on, your door's open to where if the owner of that practice or the decision maker does need something, instead of going to, their admin exec or their PR and saying, hey, go find this out, it may open up the door for them to just reach out to you directly. And whenever you've got that rapport and that level of trust, again, is going to play into the back end of the process when it comes to closing deals, trying to negotiate, trying to get them to switch from, whatever the case is to close a deal down. Having that touch point will go a long way for your influence and being able to just make sure things go as smooth as possible at the end of the process. Treat other recruiters, doctors as your own. That's one thing that I think that sometimes is not necessarily easily overlooked. It's easy to get caught up in your own stable of stuff that you're working on, right? Your own pipeline, your own docs that you're trying to push the process through, like your own, anything and everything that you've got going on throughout the day. But if you can treat other recruiters, doctors as your own, and what I mean by that is by taking a deep dive into the what, the why is this a good fit, and seeing if it is a very viable connection, right? Seeing if this is something that makes sense, right? And then from there, if you can identify that this is a great fit, I mean, obviously I know every doc that we send isn't a great fit, but we're trying to make the connections, we're trying to expand parameters, we're trying to fill up their schedules with as much as possible. That way we have the best probability to land that physician an invoice, no matter where that invoice is going, to which client, right? But there's what I'm talking about when it comes to a candidate that it looks like it's the perfect match, or they're looking exclusively in this area only, and it's the perfect match. Identify those, right? And so whenever you're getting doctors from your colleagues and other recruiters, it's like take the time to look at that physician, see if this makes sense. And I am saying, if it looks like it's a really good match and it looks like it could be something promising, push on that a lot harder with your doc. I'm sure you've all seen me maybe throw a note in here and there to my client that says, hey, Brenda, this looks like a really good one. I think we should move quick on this. Send out in CV below. Little things like that, to where it's like, if you know the why and you know that this could be a good match, make the follow-up calls. Make sure that if your recruiter doesn't, follow up within the next 24 hours or 48 hours, depending on where we are in the process, you follow up. Take the initiative, right? Because every dollar that we can generate under your stable is putting you closer and closer to that featured status. And whenever you get that lime green color on the client, there's no better feeling, because you know damn well that if somebody else has a Curari machine placement or just a match made in heaven, that doc's going to come to you and they're going to place with your client, and you're going to get half of it for literally just following the process and moving them through everything. And so, I think that it's something that not everybody does, but I think that we could definitely build on it, is identify those clients, look at those candidates as they're coming through, and see, is this a good match? Does it look very solid based on what the docs wants, what they've told your colleague, and what your client offers? Push on those extra hard, like push on those to where it's, you're making follow-up calls, you're pushing the process just as much as your colleague is, because those little ones will stack up. And especially once you get to that featured level, then, you're fighting for half of a placement there. Right. And so I think that's something that we should just be cognitive of as recruiters and colleagues are submitting docs to our own clients, is treat them like your own. Because it's going to benefit you in the long run, especially, down the road, whenever towards the end of the year, when your commission percentage is higher up based on where you're collecting at, like every dollar counts. If you're sitting at collections of 50%, you get one placement under a featured status for a $30K fee. It's almost a $7,500 doc right there that you could, help and be a part of closing. And so, yes, it's something that I think everybody should do. Look at the docs, find out what makes this a good fit. If it's a great fit, lean into that, and with all that you've got. I'm not saying that throttle off of every other doc or anything like that, but I know how some physicians can be much more solid and concrete than others. And so identify those and exploit that as you're moving them through your clients. Last thing I'll say is, expanding your connection for a client is huge. This isn't going to directly tie to featured status, but I think utilizing referrals in clients, or asking for referrals, is huge. I've picked up probably a handful of clients that way. And what I mean by that, as an example, is, going to Bakersfield, for example. They didn't hire hospitalists for the longest time. They had a practice that ran all their staffing for that. I picked up a client just south of them by simply asking, "Hey, Brenda, I've got a phenomenal hospitalist, 4 years out of training, looking to be Bakersfield, Lancaster, north of LA. Do you know anywhere I could send them by chance?" Within a week later, she connected me with Dr. Panosi, and I onboarded Horizon and ended up placing several physicians with them. They've become a pain in my butt over the years, but that led to a placement just by asking my own client, "Hey, do you have any ideas on where I can send this physician?" Right? You never know what can happen. And I said this earlier, those networks and those communities and groups are all intertwined a lot more than we give them credit for, or even really know, just based on us being so distant from the process. So I would say that, referrals is something that is maybe not asked for enough. But I think that if you can incorporate that, especially with those clients that maybe are featured or close to being featured, it's going to help build your stable of clients and grow your stable of clients dramatically. And there's nothing better from a referral, because referrals are the easiest close. Like, you literally, they get referred. Here's the price. Here's the CFA. Did Brenda tell you about our Crush program too? You got any high priority searches? This is a phenomenal program that produces great results. Here we go. And they already kind of know anything and everything based on their conversation with whoever referred them, to where it's like you can hop right in with them and operate almost the exact same as you do with whoever referred them. And as long as you've set a good process and a good foundation with them, that'll streamline into them. And then the whole coaching and the feeling out process and the, managing their expectations, or coaching them on, things that they should do differently, that's out the window, because a referral, you are instantly the pro. And so they're going to follow your lead straight from the get-go. So yeah, so that's as I say, that's about all I got. I know we're getting long in time here. I want to make sure that we've got some time for any questions, comments. If anybody has a featured client that they'd like to chime in on, just about what's helped them get to that path or that status, I would greatly appreciate it. So.
Logan, I had a question for you. If you could kind of speak to it, I know
Yeah.
at some point of being a client owner, you're going to get some rocky relationships where the relationship you can
Right.
tell. Other times where it's sending and your guns blazing, and other times where you can tell it's just falling apart for one reason or another. Do you have any examples on like things that you have done or tips that you would give on try? I know it's a loaded question, but
No,
trying
it's
to
fine. The biggest thing for that, I would say, the biggest thing I would say to that is like set a conversation to change the trajectory that you're going. And what I mean by that is, if a client's coming to you with some issues and you've got, it could be anything. Say, I hear you. Let's set up a call to discuss it, right? And first thing you want to let them do is you want to let them vent. I think that listening is the most powerful tool when it comes to consulting or selling anything. And if a client or, just even in past positions, like if somebody's upset, you want to let them get that out, right? And so you want to let them get any and every frustration out that they have, and you want to listen to it. And then while you're listening to them, you want to try to be thinking to yourself, all right, how do I correct this? What are they looking for, right? What's their end goal? What do they want to change, right? And some of that stuff we're not going to be able to change. And so if that's the case, brutal honesty in a way with providing context, I think is going to show the client that, you're vulnerable enough to understand what their issues are, where we're messing up or where they would like to see things change. And then if you can come up with solutions to change it, by all means do so. But I think, the first and foremost thing would be getting them on the phone, listening to what their concerns are, identifying if we can fix that concern with a simple change in our process or our vetting or our screening. And then letting them know, I think at the beginning of the call too, like, hey, I want to get these things back on track, like ASAP. We value your relationship with us. We've done a lot of good work in the past, or maybe it's a new client that we're not having a lot of luck with and like we're not getting anything for. That's always a good time to hop right back in and say, all right, we haven't had success in the first 3 months of onboarding with us. Let's take a review at the process. Let's take a review at some of the job details. Find out why candidates aren't interested, or maybe where we're messing up in that, and just again, I think listening from there and trying to develop a plan together and letting them know that you want it to get back on track. So what do we need to do to get from here to a better relationship, and plan that out with them. That's what I would do.
And just to jump in, I think one of the most important things Logan just said during that was get them on the phone. Like this is not something you do over email. This is a conversation you need to have with the client.
It's hard to save face over email. Tonality and email is like, they just don't go hand in hand. You could read something that somebody wrote with a smile on their face, and you could read it as like, holy shit, they're pissed off at me for some reason. So yeah, phone calls are, I definitely think, the preferred way of communication to save anything, or even really anything. I mean, I think it's hard to get relationships built and established by email only. That's why I like those touch points. I think, talking with the decision maker, getting you on the phone with at least anybody and everybody in the process at least once, just for the most random acts by any means, just so they know who you are and they can put a voice to it, is huge. Any other questions?
I have a comment. Logan, great
Fire away.
presentation. Great presentation. One word that Logan used repeatedly that I don't love, but I know where he's coming from with it, and that's the word passive. These own clients, these exclusive clients, they give you the opportunity as a recruiter to always stay focused on something. I know that we have a problem with every single person on this list almost making enough client contacts per day. I could just look at the phone times and see that. We should all be making 20 to 40 client contacts per day at a minimum on the phone. And when that's not happening, these clients that you go after that you could claim that you could get fee bumps for or find new clients, they become yours. They give you that focus that you don't have to look around for things to do. You use those jobs as your main bait points, as your main switch points. You find jobs that complement your clients, and you go out and find candidates. The passive part, of course, is when other recruiters bring candidates to you, which is somewhat true. And once you get it set up, sometimes these clients can become set it and forget it. As the owner of the company, I'm not going to have any featured clients, but Marion, for instance, I haven't talked to Tina Purvis in a long time, and it would really actually ache my soul if I had to do so at this point. But we usually get 2 placements a year out of them, and even with them moving really, really slow, and that's not even a good owned client. Mike Bick, I believe, has had, I think, 12 placements with Archwell this year, and I gotta say, he's been on the phone with them probably less than 30 minutes on the year, because he's got it set up so efficiently that he knows what has to be done. He knows when a hot job comes out. We got a 38K fee for the last placement there because he knew what their needs were and where to exploit their wallet, right? He knew how to get that wallet open for us, and it opened up. And again, so you could go out and get these clients established, learn their system, work their system, master their system, become their go-to recruiter, and it's all set up. Now you go get 3 more of those. I mean, the formula is laid. The formula is there for us, and you just got to make sure you're working with the right clients. And I'll tell you this too, every client you choose to be an exclusive with is not going to pan out. If that was the case, we'd all be super rich and we wouldn't have to work this job for as long as we do. There's a lot of bad clients out there, a lot of clients that can't close jobs, a lot of clients that won't have the volume to ever get you anywhere near a featured client, maybe not even owned, who knows. So you got to be going after those right clients, those small health systems and the big multi-specialty groups. Those are the ones that you could really, really make some big money with. And there's several that we have. I mean, Jeremiah, how many placements did you have at Richmond this year? Which isn't but qualifies for it. But how many placements have you had?
Like 8, but to your point, Jerry, it's like Rebecca and Mackenzie are awesome. They're great to work with. We have a great system, but I maybe talked to them on the phone once or twice this year. Maybe I think, to like Logan's point, if I needed to get them on the phone, if I needed like, hey, Mackenzie, Rebecca, something urgent, we got to get on the phone, we will, and it will happen quick. It's just the way our systems are set up. We just never talk. It's all via email, and it's prompt, and it's quick, and it's efficient, and it works.
Talking takes time. I mean, talking takes time. Like Logan said at the beginning of this meeting, general marketing is the worst part of this job when you're dialing that definitive healthcare number over and over again, trying to find a new client, trying to find a new job for a physician. But when you hit pay dirt on that stuff, damn, does it feel good, and it usually leads to a pretty quick interview. It's the most rewarding part,
because you're working by far.
Yeah, you're working your butt off at this fishing expedition in a huge ocean, and then you get one to bite, and that's the best. And then if you could turn into something like we're talking about here, wow, that's where you get rich at Curari, you guys. That's where you build the biggest wealth base at Curari, is by having some really good established owned clients. And if you're not taking advantage of that part of the game, you're leaving a lot of money on the table and a lot of opportunity to have a more busier, more fun day. Because here's the other thing, and this is the vicious cycle of being a physician recruiter. People aren't making phone calls because they're tired of not making contacts, right? You get on the phone and nobody's answering their phone. You're not getting through the gatekeepers, blah blah blah. So you give up. But that's where the money is made, you guys. Going through those tedious calls and just stacking those up and seeing who comes back. If you're not making those tedious calls, you're not putting in enough time. And again, you just getting your voice out there, leaving a really succinct message, saying Curari, saying your name, and saying why you're calling. Do that 3 days in a row, and you're going to start getting a lot more callbacks. As boring as it might be, but that's what you really need to be doing to go out and get yourself those new clients consistently. Thanks, Logan. Appreciate it.
I think it's also important to know your client too. It's like, I think as a recruiter, I think we have to be chameleons, and like whatever gets the client to respond. What we're talking, Archwell, Reed, not really talking on the phone. Then, although they flamed out recently, when I had success with Jiva, it was talking on the phone all the time because they didn't want to email, because they wanted to text, they wanted to call. And it didn't matter what I wanted to do. It all mattered on how I got the client to respond. So in that case, it's like, okay, Jiva, I got to talk to him on the phone. Reed, we're going to email, so that I think it's knowing your client, being a chameleon to what gets them to respond. I think is important too.
And I'll add to Jerry's point, like the tedious phone calls, you're one call away always from somebody who needs our services. And I feel like I've onboarded a couple of clients who truly need our services badly and are willing to get set up extremely quick, send a CFA, signed within 24 hours. You got jobs on the web within 72 hours of connecting with those clients. Those clients are out there for sure, especially as this market gets more competitive and there's less doctors in the field. I mean, it's going to be, there's a lot of folks out there that definitely could just use our help. It's just about running into them and putting the volume of calls out there to where you do find those.
Well, and Logan, one thing I want to amplify you said earlier too was, treating your clients well, because you don't know what it can turn into. You got you got that referral for that hospitalist. I just got a recent referral. It has nothing to come out of it yet, but we had a referral from really a client that's produced nothing. And we had a good relationship with them. So they referred the primary care practice in town to us that we got signed up, and hopefully something will come out of that. But by treating people well, by treating clients well, you never know what it's going to turn into. Worst case scenario, you feel good about what you did. Best case scenario, which happens sometimes, is you get a referral onto someone they know that needs your help, and you took care of them, so they're going to think about you. So I wanted to amplify that point too, because that's awesome that what that turned in for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's an easy thing to do. If you've got a doc that's looking in the vicinity of maybe one of your other clients who don't hold that specialty, by all means, ask them.
Well, guys, I'm going to wrap this up, but before everyone goes, just next week Dave is going to do identifying opportunities and taking action. Dave Whitty, he's not on the call. He's hanging out with his family, I believe, in Brown County, enjoying some R&R. And then just to kind of throw it out there, like I said, an email. The week after that, we're going to be talking about email management and best practices, and that's going to be a really short presentation, asking everyone to be involved. I'm going to call on people. I'm going to want questions, people to give their best tips and hints, all from us to be a collaborative type of roundtable. We're all learning from each other, about email practices and what everyone uses, because it's very different for each person. But I think there's some common things that we can all do to help to be more efficient and to better manage our time. Better we are at managing email, better we are going to be at time management, the more effective and efficient we become throughout the days. So, and saying that, I hope everyone has an awesome weekend. Hopefully everyone has good weather, good fall weather. And I don't know about everyone else, but I love fall. So hope everyone enjoys their weekend, whatever that may be.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Sweet.
guys.
Thank
Good
you,
work.
guys.
Thanks,
Have a
Logan.
great
Thanks,
weekend.
everyone.
Thanks, guys. Have a good Friday.
Thanks, Logan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Logan.
Yep. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you.